Hello and welcome back for Thursday morning with LindaZ, and I'm back here in the studio again. Got my project ready to go. Just wanted to show you today how I can change the neckline from a pattern of a blouse. So if you can see right here, I've got the blouse that I've been working on in some of these videos. It's a V-neck, and so I'm not quite done with this one yet, but I just wanted to show you that it's the V here, and then the pattern is here underneath. And the original V line was this line here on the top. And so I'm going to change it into a round neckline. And so I brought a couple examples of round necklines that I have in my wardrobe already. And so I have this high round neck here, which is this dress. I can pull that out and show you by just holding it up to myself. It's got a higher neckline, and it's so high that it requires a zipper on the back of the dress to be able to get in, to get this neckline over the head. So that's too high of a round neckline for me. And then this other one I was also looking at was this blouse that is an open, very open neckline. And so I wanted to find something in between the two. And so I was holding them up to the pattern. And so I had them here on the pattern, and I was just looking at how, so I folded my garment in half, and I can see where that was cut out, that fabric was cut out, and I can see that that would have been the line for that neckline. It would have been to right about here, a couple inches shorter or longer than the neckline that I'm choosing here for this sample. And so what I did was I took some extra pattern ease, the fabric that I used to make patterns with. You could have taken a piece of paper, and I taped it front and back with my handy dandy embroidery tape over here, which can be used for anything, right? So I taped that piece to the back of my original pattern for my V line, for my V neckline. And I drew here with my friction pen a dot to where I wanted to end that neckline. So I just put a dot here on the pattern, and then from the corner of the shoulder here to here, I had to create a line, and I drew one first, and I didn't think it had enough of a dip. So I used this ruler to help me get a line that had more of a dip to it for my neckline. And so then I just drew the second line. So I'm going to use that more curved line as my pattern, and I'm going to go ahead and cut along that line. So that is now my new pattern. And then I can cut off at the shoulder here where that original shoulder piece was, and I can just dispose of these pieces. And then I've got my new pattern, which is going to have a round neck. So that is basically what I wanted to be able to show you. All three of these do have the bias tape, the bias made of the same fabric as the actual garment, sewn into the inside of the neckline. This one is the one I'm making right now. This is a white one, same thing. It was sewn in to the neckline. This one's a little bit thinner bias tape to hold the neckline in place. It's a very nice reinforcement for the neckline. And then this one also, same thing. It had a piece of the fabric on the bias sewn in to the neckline. So what I need to do is, like we did the last time, is cut on the fold this entire piece. So we're cutting just these sides, and then I will have my rounded neckline in that piece.
Hi, sewing friends. It's Linda here with a cup of coffee. I hope you have one too. The wonderful thing about this channel is that it's a tribute to sewing, quilting, and embroidery. We showcase an array of machines that will fit every project that you can even imagine. Do you enjoy our content? Well, then please lend us your support with a subscription, a like, a comment, positive comments. We love hearing from you. For product inquiries, just LindaZ.com. It's always open. We have a dedicated sales staff that look forward to helping you make the right choice with your future machine needs. And let's embark on today's sewing journey.
Okay, so I've decided to cut out the new fabric for my new neckline, And so the patterns were here. This is the end result here with the rounded neckline. You can see that rounded neck, which is great. And then I have my piece of bias fabric, so cut on the 45-degree angle, and then I sewed two pieces together of the bias. So I've got my bias tape, which is going to be sewn now on the neckline. So I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to start, because I'm going to have a seam in this at some point. So I would like my seam to be exactly in the back of the neckline. So I'm going to flip this to the back. And so I've got my pretty side out. And I am going to take my binding, which has one fold in it. I'm facing pretty sides together, and I go to the end, and I'm going to take from the center fold, which is still there. I'm going to have a little bit, a couple inches excess, and I'm going to start pinning raw edge to raw edge all the way around here. So as you can see here, I've pinned all the way around, and I said I wanted my seam to be at the back. So and it's kind of like a full circle moment between garment sewing and quilting, because this is like putting a binding on a quilt, actually. So what I did was I took and I overlapped each of the sides of the binding here by the exact size of the width of my binding. So my interfacing is actually 2 1/4 inches wide. And so I allowed the two strips to overlap with each other by 2 1/4, and then I turned them at an angle and I stitched them together. So you can see then that it fits perfectly into the neckline here. And so I'm going to trim, after I stitched down there, I'm going to trim this piece to 3/8 of an inch length right there, so that it's even, and then I'm going to finger press that open. And I've got a second seam just like the other seam that's right over here. That was the two pieces of interfacing that were sewn together. So I can trim off the points once I open that to line up my interfacing to have a straight line there along the edge. And then I will put that last pin in place here to hold that closed piece. So I'm going to sew all the way around my neckline now to do the first seam. So we're going to bring it over to my Juki 18, which is my straight stitch machine that I love. And I'm going to start here at the back. Actually, what I'm going to do is probably start at the shoulder seam. Let's start at the shoulder seam, which is right here. And I'm shooting for a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, which I have a sticky tape stuck to the base of my machine to show me kind of where that is. It's a piece, again, of my embroidery tape, my handy dandy embroidery tape that I love so much. Straighten that guy out, and then we'll just go all the way around. I have my navy blue thread in, sort of a contrast to the purple color of this double gauze fabric that I'm using for this blouse. And I'm just going to slowly work my way around. Taking the pins out as I go. Oh, and just so you know, I fold the seam of the shoulder seam towards the back of the blouse underneath there. So the seam is facing the back of the blouse on both sides. Just keep it going along, and I'm almost at the shoulder seam where I started. There we are. Just cut that, lift that up, and then I'll bring that over to my workspace again over here. So what I can do is I can take and stitch along, so I can pull the seam that I just made towards the interfacing here, towards the binding, and I'm going to stitch all the way around again right next to that seam. So I'm actually stitching the seam inward so that it will never pucker or anything like that. So it's called I forget what it's called, underlay seam or something like that. So we're just going to start at the corner of the shoulder seam again. So I'm pulling that seam, I don't know if you can see that here, I'm pulling it towards the interfacing all the way around, and I'm just going to tack it down pretty much. That's what I'm doing, is tacking it down to itself using that seam. So I'm going to be as close to that, as close to the seam to the right of that seam now as I can be. There we go. So I'm going to do that all the way around. Of course, I'm double checking all the time that that seam is pulled towards the right under there. Pulling it and finger pressing as I go. I'm at a 2.5 stitch length right now, which seems to be doing okay. There we are at the back, at that seam that closed off the interfacing. And there we go. Okay, so we're done. We did that. That's good. Now let's go back over here. And we are going to fold. So we already had the pressed seam here folded. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take it from a shoulder seam, and I'm going to fold it right over towards the inside of the garment. So the point is that I want this seam, the stitching that I just sewed out, to be on the inside of the garment. So I'm going to actually turn the garment inside out. And I'm going to try to pin that down. Like so. So that you can see that stitching on the, so we're on the back side, the underside, the wrong side of the garment, and I want to be able to see that stitch so that it's hiding from the front. And I'm going to pin all the way around, and then I'm going to stitch really close on this wrong side. I'm going to stitch right at that fold. So I'm going to pin, and we'll be back after that. Okay, so I've got the collar pinned. Again, I'm on the wrong side of the inside of the collar. I'm on the inside of the collar, wrong side of the garment. So I'm going to take from the start of the shoulder seam, and I'm going to stitch right along the edge of this fold to the inside of that fold, and that's to tack down the inside of the collar to hold that collar in place so it will stay very sturdy, my collar. So let's go ahead over to the machine and do that. This is a very slippery fabric. My double gauze cotton, 100% cotton double gauze from Japan. It's very pretty. We've got a bunch of these at the store. We're getting more, actually. They just sent us an invoice for a bunch of bolts that are coming. There are a lot of double gauzes, so they're coming in. Our Japanese fabrics, I love them. So pretty. So here we go. This is the top stitch, basically, right around the edge. Remove my pins as I go around. So here I'm at the final pin, final moment here of the sewing. I'll cut that thread, and then we can come over here, and I can press it, but I think it looks pretty good. Let me put my iron on. I can show you what it looks like before going to the iron. And this is the final product. Here, let's lay it flat here on the table. It's very cute, I think. And I can trim my thread that was right there. So yes, this is what the round collared, so we changed it from that V-neck, which is right here. Let me show you that one again. Same pattern, 2 different necklines. This one, I've got all these pins in here, or I would turn it right side out. This is the V-neck. That was the original pattern, and we converted it to a round neck. So I think with that, we'll just say, see you next time. Have a wonderful Thursday. Bye, everyone.